Hello, good morning. We are live on Facebook here with the City of Brentwood. I'm Deanna Lambert, the Community Relations Director. I'm joined this morning by Todd Hoppenstedt, the man of the hour, the Director of Public Works, who's out there managing all the crews today, responding to the roads and making sure that all of our roads here in Brentwood are clear this morning. How are you, Todd?
I'm doing well, Deanna. A little bit too much hype on the man of the hour.
You probably need a nap right about now, don't you?
I could use some rest. It's really a team effort in Brentwood, so nobody can take all the credit.
It sure is. And we also have a Brentwood Police Patrol Officer, Brian Kirkpatrick, in the passenger side of the vehicle. And we have Lieutenant Scott Graham safely driving the vehicle. You can see their live view right here. They are heading out on some of the roads here in Brentwood to kind of give you a live look of what's going on, because the main message today is, folks, you really have to stay home, because although Public Works is doing a great job on these roads, it is still very dangerous out there. Todd, what have your crews been seeing today?
So, Deanna, today the conditions are a bit worse because the overnight temperatures were so cold that salt is really ineffective at this point. Brentwood doesn't have the infrastructure in place to use some of the other chemicals like calcium chloride or carbohydrates that would help the effectiveness of salt at lower temperatures. So we have really stopped throwing salt. If you throw any now, you might get a little benefit out of it, but more importantly, it would refreeze and it would create more treacherous conditions than the snowpack. The snowpack is something that most cars can drive on and get a little bit of traction on. We're hearing from some of our partners at the county and throughout the city today that it's not going that's an issue, it's stopping. So I caution everybody, don't go out unless you absolutely have to. Some streets are in good shape. I would say the state routes and the main roads, which Brentwood handles both through our community, we have a partnership agreement with TDOT, are probably in the best condition. But as you can see there in that live shot from Maryland Way and Franklin Road, they're not clear by any stretch. Our secondaries should have all been plowed overnight. Again, we're not salting at this point. And currently we've got crews working on some of the collector streets in the neighborhoods. That's an area we typically don't respond to in a snow or ice event because it's beyond our policy. But we felt it was necessary, especially with the additional accumulations that are forecasted, to try and get within at least 2 or 3 blocks of every home in the community for police, fire, EMS calls, and those folks that do have to get in and out.
Correct. And we have Officer Kirkpatrick back with us today right now. And it looks like you're is that Woodland Middle you guys are around, Officer?
No, we're on Murray Lane in front of Brentwood High School.
Okay, Murray Lane in front of Brentwood High School. I'm looking at it really small here on my laptop screen. So tell us kind of from your perspective, Officer, what you guys are seeing out there. I know Todd and his crews have been working overtime on these streets out there, but what's your advice to drivers or really anyone today?
Do is just stay home if at all possible. If you have a car and you're trying to get out and you have to get out, if you have a rear wheel drive vehicle, my suggestion is stay home. Don't try to get out in that because you will get stuck and you'll need me or somebody else to come help you out. If you have a 4-wheel drive vehicle, all-wheel drive vehicle, it's a little safer. But again, the best advice I can give you is to stay home if at all possible.
Exactly. So true. The roads out there are, it's pretty to look at, but often dangerous for those of us who've grown up here in the South who really have never really driven on roads like this. One of our commissioners, Susanna McMillan, is sending out a big thank you to Brentwood Public Works. She certainly appreciates how hard you're working, and Brentwood definitely has the best employees, and we certainly are appreciative of police, of fire, Public Works, everyone out there today who's just keeping everything underway and safe. Jason Welch has a question here for Mr. Hoppenstedt. Do neighborhoods get plowed? Can you explain that for us, Todd?
So I can, Jason, a little bit anyhow. I've been the director here in Brentwood for only 3 years, and we haven't had opportunities like this, thankfully. So I'm kind of learning as we go. But our policy here in Brentwood is to really only treat the main routes, the secondary routes, severe hills, curves, school zones when school's in session, which is not likely going to be the case this week. Certainly not until Thursday at the earliest. So it's a balancing act for any community in the Southeast to have the costly equipment at hand for these infrequent types of events, and remain fiscally responsible. So Brentwood, I feel, is a bit more prepared than maybe some of the neighboring communities. That's not at all an indictment against what they're doing in those communities. But as of this morning, my observation was that our roads were in better condition than some of those other neighboring communities. We do not plow every neighborhood street. To get to the question, we just don't have the resources to get into every cul-de-sac, every little neighborhood street. Like I said a minute ago, we are now trying to get into some of those collector streets. So there should be a plowed road within 2 or 3 blocks of every home in this community once we're done with that effort. We really only have 3 pieces of equipment right now that remain operational and able to move this heavy frozen snow. So you're going to have to be patient with us. We've been working 24 hours a day since Wednesday at 6 p.m. of last week. But no, we don't get to every street. That's never been the intent. Quite honestly, the routes we're doing today with collector streets is beyond what our typical policy is.
And we're hearing a lot of thank yous from our live stream here this morning. We have Jared Peters giving you guys a thanks for all you do. We have Christina Statum mentioning, good morning to the Brentwood Police Department. Our friend John Major is saying thank you for this update and visuals about what's out there. And so, again, we appreciate, everything. We appreciate the thank yous, but we also are appreciative of you guys out there in public works and police and fire as well. Melinda Blankenhorn had a question. Can you talk about kind of the treatment of the roads, Todd, salting versus other options that might be used?
I'd be glad to. And thank you to all of those that are commenting. We appreciate the praise and your support. Melinda, to your question, I spoke about that a minute ago. With the temperatures where they're at currently, salt by itself, rock salt, calcium rock salt, will not be very effective. If anything, it'll melt a little bit, refreeze, and it's almost as if a Zamboni on the ice rink has gone by, creating a sheet of glass that just makes it more treacherous. So right now, the roads are not being salted. Maybe there's a handful of very trouble spots where we're trying to make salt work, but it's just not going to work throughout the city on a day like today with temperatures where they're at. Tonight doesn't look much better. You can actually see in that picture a long street, it's a little bit of ice covered, very treacherous, terrifying. But there at the intersection, kind of in the middle of the frame, that's exactly what I'm talking about. That's where salt has begun to take effect and created an icy spot. So that's the case here in Brentwood. We're not salting currently. We were salting very robustly the other day. We spread about 200 tons, but then the temperatures dropped so significantly that we cannot. We may be salting again as early as tomorrow or Thursday into Friday. It looks like the weekend's going to provide some better melting temperatures. My concern would be refreezing overnight, so we'll remain ready to throw some salt in those cases. But with the temperatures anywhere below about 20 degrees, don't expect the salt.
Yes, and Christy Bidinger, I think is her last name, she just mentioned that she realizes we have live traffic cameras around Brentwood. We do, and you can actually find those on our website here at traffic.brentwoodtn.gov. And we are thankful for that resource during times like this, because you can definitely see all the different areas. Some of our cameras are not working online right now, but if you also have access to cable, we are live streaming all of our cameras 24/7 on our cable access channel right now. And so let's go back over to Officer Kirkpatrick and find out exactly where are you guys at now?
We're in McGavick Farms right now, just checking some of the back streets and just negative for the immune system or anything like that. And as you can tell, I don't know if you guys can see the road. Trying to work on this camera a little bit, but the roads back here they're pretty bad, and we have seen some cars that are stuck on these side streets, and just trying to make sure everybody's okay while we go drive back.
Yeah, and hazardous travel. I mean, it looks pretty out there. I know my kids just, they're home from school. They just want to go outside and play. I mean, that's really what you're advising people to do today, right, officer?
Yeah, go outside and play for sure, but just don't go outside and drive.
Our boss may not like that advertisement.
Deanna, can I chime into that point?
Yes, please.
I do think that going outside and playing is a great recommendation. I could just encourage people to keep that in your yards or in the parks. Yesterday, made some observations of people snowboarding down the street, sledding in the street. I know it looks like tremendous fun. I'm a little jealous, but we were seeing cars that were unprepared for that, having to quickly stop. One slid off the road. So you're causing some danger to yourself by being in the roadway, and you're also causing danger to people that may have to make a quick maneuver, especially on road conditions like this. So if you can try to limit your playing to the grassy areas, that would be much safer for all involved.
And that is a great piece of advice, because I know a lot of our hospitals have been seeing an increase in those reports of people showing up, even slipping on the ice, walking out your front door. And so definitely sledding safety. We have some advice on our main website page, brentwoodpn.gov, talking about, don't let your kids outside by themselves. Definitely make sure there's always an adult with them. Make sure that they're sledding, feet first, that they're not going to, crash into objects that are out there in the way. So yeah, I mean, it is a fun and beautiful time to be out there when we don't get a lot of snow like this in Tennessee, but we definitely have to, be careful of all of the objects out there too. Here we have a couple of more comments. Brandy Thigpen, one of our friends, she's thanking the Brentwood Police Department the very best. Thanks for keeping us safe. Let's see. Mary Catherine says, grateful for all you guys are doing and for communicating with us. Yes, we definitely want to make sure that we are informing our residents about what is going on out there. Let's see. James mentions that we are stuck in Fountain Brook. Roads have not been touched. Emergency vehicles couldn't get into the neighborhood if they wanted to. Do you want to address this neighborhood, Todd, and kind of talk about a little bit about what's going on out there?
Sure. With Fountain Brook and all the neighborhoods, like I've said, we just don't have the resources to get into those neighborhoods. We are partnering very closely with Brentwood Dispatch, police, fire, EMS calls. We can get a truck there just as quickly as they'll be able to get there themselves. So we have an emergency plan in place, and we're working that route. And like I said a minute ago, we're also starting to address some of those collector streets so that we can be within, we'll have a cleared street within 2 or 3 blocks of every home in the community. Once that effort is done, I expect probably by this evening. If not, we'll continue on with our overnight shift to make sure that those collector streets are addressed. But not every home in Brentwood will see their street plowed. It's not reasonable or realistic given our infrequent weather events and the cost to do such. But we are working with the dispatch folks, so not to worry. We'll get there.
And Deanna, there just if I can chime in a little bit, fortunately the driving the police department are all-wheel drive, and there's very few places that we can't get to with a little bit of effort just to check on people, and if 911 calls go out. So we're doing our best to get wherever we need to get, and even if we got to do it on foot, we're going to do our best to get wherever people call and wherever there's need.
For mentioning that, Officer Kirkpatrick. It is definitely police and fire's priority. With those big fire trucks, thankfully they are able to get into all those neighborhoods, regardless of kind of what the conditions are on the road. So all of our departments in the city are working together and communicating. And if there is something out there that police see that needs addressing, obviously they're communicating with Todd and the public works crews. So It definitely is a teamwork and a partnership between all of our agencies, making sure that what needs to be taken care of in these next few days, is priority. So our weather situation, weather is pretty much staying in the 20s today, and then a wintry mix is expected to arrive again tomorrow. So Todd, you guys just aren't getting a break out there.
No, ma'am, we're not. Like I said, we've got our crew split into 2 shifts. That kind of skeletonizes us a little bit from the hands on deck situation at any given time. But that gives us the best coverage over 24 hours. Unfortunately, Public Works is not structured like police and fire, where we always have the staff to cover 24-hour shifts. So it becomes a bit more challenging for us. We're up to that task, but we would appreciate a break in the weather. Hopefully the weekend will be that break for us, but it looks like we've got several days to go before we get there. We'll continue to work around the clock to get to people as best we can.
All right. Well, we have about 75 people watching live right now. And so if you have any questions, please feel free to type into the comments below and let us know what you are wondering about and what your questions are involving Brentwood right now. We again have Officer Kirkpatrick in the passenger seat of a Brentwood patrol car, and we have Lieutenant Scott Graham driving. So Officer Kirkpatrick, tell us a little bit about, you've been on shift today probably since early this morning. So tell us have you seen a lot of accidents? Have you seen a lot of people even out there today?
There's a small amount of traffic. Fortunately, most of the people have heeded our warning and stayed home. Again, not to reiterate this over and over, but just that's the best advice. And so that we haven't had a lot of accidents because people are staying off the roads. There have been several stuck vehicles, people getting out and trying to navigate through this and getting stuck. And we've had to push people out and help them out. Particularly the ones that are getting stuck are these rear wheel drive vehicles, but we also had a 4-wheel drive truck that got stuck in a drift where the Public Works have been moving snow, and they're trying to go into a parking lot and they get stuck. So it's a small amount of traffic, and we're hoping it'll stay that way. And to your point about the weather that's coming up, there's more weather coming up, and if this stuff on the road freezes over, it's just going to make driving pretty treacherous and dangerous. Again, Public Works guys are doing great. They're doing fantastic, and we're appreciative of everything they're doing. But again, just stay home and have some kind of, if you do have to go out, have some kind of contingency plan. You don't need to go out, in a pair of tennis shoes and shorts like you're going to the gym, because if you get stuck and you have to walk somewhere, you're going to be really cold and, risk some serious problems. And, take a blanket with you, take whatever you got to have, but, appropriate clothing if you got to get out in this stuff, because we don't want anybody getting out and getting stuck. And then the worst thing that could happen is somebody really, getting hurt and injured in this stuff.
And that is a great point, Officer. My daughter tried to go out the other day in some sandals, and I said, this is not a smart idea. So at that moment, we put a lot of extra blankets, bottles of water, and a lot of extra things in our vehicle, so that if we do have to go out and heaven forbid, there's, we get stranded or something, that we do have supplies and materials, even put a few snacks in your car, I bet.
Yeah, just be prepared. It's better to have and not need it than need it and not have it. And, that's the biggest thing. And, like I say, this weather could turn worse again over the next few days. So if you can stay home, just stay home.
Yeah, even state offices I know have closed today. So a lot of employers, with the pandemic, a lot of people have learned how to work from home. So we kind of joked the other day, Lieutenant Graham and I, if you weren't already staying home for the pandemic, well, then now you need to stay home because there's a snowstorm. So really, the roads, you see a little bit of black out there right now. Like we're looking at this picture of Granny White Pike and Bell Reeve Drive. And, you see black tire, the asphalt, and you see a truck here moving safely. But honestly, you got to know yourself and you got to know your strength. I did not grow up driving in conditions like this, so I'm gonna just stay put here right now.
Deanna, go ahead.
I was gonna say that can be deceiving, because because you're seeing black asphalt, doesn't mean it's safe, because that stuff can ice over, and you could be going across ice. And I don't care how good a driver you are or where you grew up, you can't drive on ice. And because gravity will take over Mr. Newton's laws of gravity, and you'll find yourself in a ditch or against a tree
real fast. Yeah. Now, Todd, on the other hand, he did grow up driving in conditions like this, right?
Well, I did, and I've got some experience with snow and ice. But again, I think it's important for everybody. I mean, the ongoing joke is that nobody's really from Nashville, right? And I know that's not true. There are some natives here, and we love them. But it seems like a lot of people, like myself, are not from here, who've chosen to relocate here. We're in the Southeast now. If you've come from other climates, particularly the north, or places where they get snow, they're a lot more capable and suited of dealing with this type of stuff, and on a more frequent basis. So some of my experiences are just that, in communities where you had 20 plus plow trucks and you had the staffing and you had the other chemicals to help the salt work. That's just not the case here in Middle Tennessee. I was talking to somebody yesterday that said they haven't seen a storm like this probably in the last 15 years. So I'm hopeful that this is maybe an every 10 to 15 year event. I don't look forward to the next one. But at the same time, we've got to balance those resources, those taxpayer dollars, and determine what our level of service and the equipment we should own and operate and have available to us for things like this should be, especially if it's only going to get used, infrequently. Those things are very costly. So that's the point that I was trying to make. And yes, you're right. It's to what Officer Kirkpatrick was saying. If you have experience driving in snow, your experience is great, but it's also somewhat relative to where that experience came from and how those roads were being treated. Things are much different here. I've been plowing snow for 20 years, and I feel like I'm pretty experienced at it. Coming up Long Street and back down the other night, I've not been quite as scared as I was. So things respond differently.
Now, Todd, have you been driving any of the trucks out there?
Yes, ma'am, I have. I try to put myself where I'm needed most in the community. And in times like this, sometimes that's where you're needed most. While it's not the typical job description of the public works director, I'm training some newer staff. We've got people that are going through hands-on training. We're utilizing different types of equipment and different approaches. Just last night, in fact, we did a partnership with the police department. If anybody saw that, it probably caught you by surprise because it did look very unique. Police officers were ahead of 4 of our plow trucks, and they were kind of blocking the intersections, especially at red lights, so that we could work in a sequence and clear main roads a lot quicker. And I'll tell you, it may appear to the outsider like an overuse of resources or an unnecessary use of resources. In my experience, what we accomplished in 3 hours yesterday with the help of the police department was far more significant than the sum of the parts. All those people involved could not have done that on their own in that same amount of time, probably not with twice as many people. So it was a tremendous success for us. And those are kind of some of the ways we're trying to deal with things here.
Yep. And I was actually trying to find that video because that was pretty neat how you guys did team up with police there. And it looked amazing.
And we saw many people out taking video when they saw us coming, particularly like at Smith Park. There were some sledders on the hill there, and we went down Wilson Pike going south and then came back north. And if anybody's got those videos from the side, obviously taking video of ourselves wasn't our priority there, but we'd love to see those and share those too. So send them to Deanna if you could.
Yeah, here we go. We have one. Is this is what you were talking about there? Yeah, and there's the partnership with police, making sure that these drivers are safe in the road there. And that's another point of this is that when those salt and plow truck drivers are out there, they can't see everything around them. So you really, as a driver, have to give them room to do this work.
That's correct, particularly at night. And it's important to say that these drivers have been up working 24-hour shifts. They're only working 12 hours at a time. But we've got many of them sleeping in hotels because they live so far away. There's just no way they can get home and back. So they're making sacrifices with their families to be here to help serve in Brentwood, but they're exhausted too. So stay out of the roads as much as possible. People are out jogging, walking dogs, sledding, all those things. I understand you want to get out and do something. If you can try and be on the lookout for us as much as we're on the lookout for you and try and get out of the way, that's helpful. Don't think that just because a truck's coming, they necessarily see you, especially at night. I had a kid sled out of his driveway the other day across Jackson Road there, Jackson, just west of Franklin Road. Totally not expecting that. Didn't see it with the shrubbery and the large mailbox at the end of the driveway. And this young boy just sled right down his driveway and out into the road. If I'd have been a few seconds, further along in my travels, that could have been deadly. So those are the surprises that none of us like. Please, please, please be careful.
Yeah, and that's the emphasis right here. While it's a fun storm for kids and they're out of school, you really got to keep a watch on those kids because they like to get out there and they don't think through things. I know my 8-year-old and my 6-year-old sometimes don't think through things like we adults. And so we have to be out there to help protect them. Kim Carpenter King, hello there. She says, thank you, Brentwood Police. Officer Kirkpatrick, do you have anything to kind of allude to as far as what you guys have seen with anybody using sleds or, I always get so nervous when I see people pulling sleds with a vehicle. I'm sure it's fun for the kids, but it makes me nervous.
Well, we haven't seen any of that, thank goodness. Obviously there's a whole lot of things that could go wrong with that. And fortunately, we haven't seen any of that. But one of the things I was going to just say real quick is when it comes to the salt trucks or just traffic in general, when you are out in this, what we ask is for everyone to have an extra bit of patience and calm when you're driving in something like this. Don't let anger and frustration get the better of you because somebody in front of you may be a little less experienced in driving in this. Everybody needs to have an extra dose of patience if you get out in this stuff. Again, I preface that saying just if you have to get out in this, don't get impatient, don't get angry. It's just not going to help. It's not going to help you. It's not going to help anybody else. And you need to be situationally aware. Just pay attention to the feeder streets and the side streets in the event that somebody is out walking or somebody is sledding, because again, we don't want an inconvenience to turn to a tragedy. That's the biggest thing that we're concerned about as far as the police. And, because we know that this is going to end, this is not going to be here for that long. And there's really nothing worth getting out in and just putting yourself at risk or anybody else at risk. And especially just be patient. That's the biggest thing we're asking people to do. Well, one of the things we're asking, I should say.
Exactly. Patience. And, everyone at home, our friend Kristen Korn here, city attorney for Brentwood, she's thanking you guys. We all see how much public works, public safety, fire, police, everyone, you guys are the very best right now. Maureen Nikitas, thank you for always keeping my family members safe on the roadway. We appreciate your comments. And Elaine Allen, we so appreciate you and your work to protect our city and our citizens. So, these comments are really helpful to the team members right now that are out there working these long shifts. I mean, Public Works have been pulling, 12-hour shifts, so have police and fire. And so your comments really do matter and your support. And, we also want to hear, where we can definitely do better also. So we appreciate all of your comments and everything that you guys have been sharing with us. We do want to mention our live traffic cameras. Again, as you can see, this is a photo from one of those cameras. This is over on a Church and what is this? Church Street and Wilson Pike. You can find all of those traffic cameras right here online at traffic.brentwoodtn.gov. And those are actually, oops, sorry, that's my next meeting, y'all. These are all live traffic cameras. This is a still shot, but these are live, continuously streaming on our cable access channel. So anytime you need to see what's going on in Brentwood, you can definitely check those out. All right, Todd, Officer Kirkpatrick, what do you think? Anything else to add here?
No, I think we've kind of hit it, covered the bases. If you need us, call, and we'll do our best to get to you. Obviously, if it's an emergency, call us, and we're gonna get to you. I promise. If something is happening and you need our help and our assistance, we're going to continue to work on the problems in the road. I know Todd is, I should say.
We appreciate everybody's support. We're doing the best we can with what we have. Equipment breakdowns are unexpected, and some of our partners in the repair world, AutoZone and places like that, we find are closed today because they didn't want their employees to come out. So those things can be challenging. Please just be patient with us. We're trying to be fair and provide equitable service to the entire city. We have about 475 lane miles of road, which is pretty overwhelming. And as I mentioned earlier, only really 3 trucks that are able to push it at this point. So it's a lot of work, but patience and support is appreciated. Thank you.
And we do want to mention before we go that the Brentwood Library, of course, is closed today. All Brentwood parks are closed, and we will be making decisions about what the weather will entail and what that means for tomorrow later today. But of course, we have a lot of resources on our website. Please be sure to check out brentwoodtn.gov. The library has a lot of resources and plenty of fun videos to keep you and your kids occupied while you're stuck inside, maybe for a few extra days, on our city's YouTube channel. So Officer Kirkpatrick, Lieutenant Graham, and Todd Hoppenstedt, we appreciate your time today, and we appreciate all of you tuning in live for this Facebook, and we'll be back soon to update you. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
I think she's got another one for us. Oh. Yeah, I was going to say I could have turned it on here so that could see you, and then when we need to go.
Well, I just